Raptors fans, and welcome back to Raptors Report. I'm your host, Julian. You've probably heard my voice before, and this is what I look like, unfortunately. This is the brand new Raptors Report format. There will be stuff that you've seen in the past, mixed with live action stuff where I talk to the camera. So it's not completely different, but there are elements that are going to be different, so I hope you enjoy that. Now, a ton has happened since we last spoke. Nick Nurse has been fired, there's been the play-in disaster, Fred VanVleet is gone, and tons more, probably more stuff that will transpire between now and when this video comes out, so don't judge me too harshly. But there are two topics that I want to talk about. The first of which is the hiring of new coach Darko Rajakovic. We're going to take a look at his background, what he brings to the team, some of the strategies that he likes to use, and kind of what you can expect from him. The next is the Raptors draft pick, and that is obviously Gradey Dick. He is a very intriguing player, and he brings a lot to the table, so we're going to look at that guy as well. And when we combine those two things together, that'll be the episode. And without any further ado, let's jump right in. Before we get to what Gradey Dick brings to the table as a prospect, let's quickly talk about new coach Darko Rajakovic. Darko was one of the best regarded young assistant coaches in the NBA, having worked in the G League as a head coach for the Oklahoma City farm team, as well as being an assistant for the Thunder, the Suns, and lastly, the Memphis Grizzlies, where he helped make marked improvements to the offensive systems of those teams, emphasizing ball movement as well as player movement. I've joked that Darko has an 80% win percentage as a head coach, going 4-1 while filling in for Memphis coach Taylor Jenkins. But joking aside, he has been involved in 3 of the most successful franchises in the Western Conference over the past decade, and has received a lot of credit for his role in their success. Many names have floated around the Raptors during their long and in-depth coaching search, but Rajakovic has all of the accolades that you could ask for from an assistant coach, and I'm happy he's on board. Another thing to keep in mind is that the Raptors have a tradition of choosing assistant coaches to fill head coaching vacancies. And while that might be due to being passed over by the top coaching candidates and retreads, it has worked out for them quite well, with both Dwayne Casey and Nick Nurse leading them to success in the regular season and playoffs. It's difficult to ascertain whether the hire will be a success, but I like what I've heard, and there are some great articles detailing what he brings to the table from a coaching standpoint that I will link to in the description. Darko Rajakovic, very interesting fellow, very excited to see him on the Toronto Raptors sidelines. Obviously, it's impossible to predict what he's going to be like as an NBA head coach, because he's, only coached 5 games as a head coach. Although, 4-1, pretty good. I'm excited to see what he brings to the table, and who knows, he could have the potential to be an all-time great Toronto Raptors head coach. So, very excited for him, but even more excited for the next guy that we're going to be talking about, and that is Gradey Dick. Very cool player, Kansas Jayhawk. Why don't we jump in and take a look at what he brings to the table? There's a ton to like about Gradey Dick as a prospect. The first is his fit on the roster. I've mentioned in the past that reaching in the draft in order to fill a need is not something that appeals to me. I think that the most important element to look for in the draft is talent, and if that player plays a position where you're already strong, but the talent of the player separates them from the rest of the prospects available to you, you select them and then find a way to make it work, either through a trade or splitting minutes. While Gradey Dick absolutely addresses a need for the Raptors, shooting, I'm glad to report that I don't think that the Raptors reached on this pick at all. Most mock drafts had Gradey in the late single digits to the mid-teens, so his selection at number 13 by the Raptors means that he wasn't selected outside of his projected draft range. The next thing that you should note is that while talent rules all, there is a good case for fit being important as well. Dick has a skill that the Raptors need badly, and his size at 6'8" allows him to play in the guard spot as well as on the wing, meaning that he won't necessarily step on the toes of any of the returning roster, and it should be easy to find time for him in most lineups. The fact that he projects to have a very in-demand skill means that he should receive the minutes that a prospect needs in order to improve and acclimate to the NBA game. In terms of what he brings to the table offensively, Gradey's skill set to this point has been as a movement shooter. A movement shooter is an off-ball guard whose role on offense is to run off screens, utilize dribble handoffs, and pull the defense all over the place with cuts, flares, and off-ball movement. As NBA fans just witnessed in the finals, a playmaking big coupled with a shooting guard operating in a two-man game can be incredibly effective in the half-court. The Raptors have a bunch of those types of players already, with Siakam, Scottie Barnes, and even Jakob Poeltl being able to set screens and find open players. What those guys have lacked have been the high-level shooting and play finishing that someone like Gradey Dick could bring to the table. And that brings me to my next point, which is Gradey's other offensive tools, namely his ability to cut to the basket and finish with an array of moves, as well as his ability to get out in transition and finish on the break. One great thing about having a fantastic three-point shooter is that teams often overplay them for the shot, and try and top-lock that player to prevent them from catching the ball beyond the three-point line, or trying to break up a dribble handoff by staying up high. Gradey uses the threat of his shot to open up cuts to the basket, where he's a creative finisher with a nice touch. Take a look at this play and tell me you couldn't see Scottie Barnes delivering a similar pass. Lastly on the list of positives is Gradey's age. Gradey Dick was a college freshman at the tender age of 19, and he managed to have a very impressive campaign for Kansas, being one of the top freshmen in both points and three-pointers made. Dick shot a sterling 40% from 3 on 6 attempts per game and decided to become a one-and-done player by declaring for the NBA draft in April. Youth often indicates that a prospect has a longer runway to develop additional skills and improve on existing ones, so that element should not be overlooked either. Thus far in his career, Dick has primarily filled the role of an off-ball guard, and has not shown too much in terms of on-ball creation skills. His ball handling skills are not very refined, his first step isn't incredible, and he lacks the wiggle and shiftiness of lead guards whose games manage to translate to the NBA. I imagine that in his first few seasons, Gradey will fill the role he has so far in his young career, a sweet-shooting off-ball wing who creates space and helps maximize a team's half-court offense. Raptors fans have been watching the struggliest of struggle ball in the half-court over the past few seasons, so having a guy who can come in and bang shots and run off screens with a purpose will be a breath of fresh air. Defensively, Gradey has a couple of things going for him. His size and wingspan are both good for his position, and he has pretty good instincts on when to gamble for steals. His lateral foot speed is nothing to write home about, and he might struggle to keep top-notch NBA athletes in front of him. But, unlike a lot of guys who have the shooting skill that Gradey possesses, his height means that it won't be as easy to pick on him in cross-match situations when the defense breaks down. In terms of NBA comps, there are a bunch of guys who spring to mind. Reggie Miller, Klay Thompson, Kyle Korver, those guys all seem like decent player comps, as tall shooters whose off-ball play really makes teams look special offensively. Gradey Dick said that he has modeled his game after Klay Thompson, but also mentioned Paul George as a guy he wanted to emulate, perhaps pointing at a desire to develop on-ball creation skills in addition to his off-ball ones. In any case, I love the Dick pick, and I'm extremely excited to watch him play for the Toronto Raptors, as I'm sure you are as well. And there you have it. That's the episode. I hope you enjoyed. I am really looking forward to watching Gradey Dick play for the Toronto Raptors. He looks like a very exciting player, and he brings something to the table that we've really been lacking over the past, decade. There have not been a lot of Toronto Raptors players that can shoot the ball as well as he projects to. So I'm really excited to watch him play, and I'm very excited to watch him play in the Summer League as well. And if you want to, you can check out my Twitter, because I'm always talking about the Toronto Raptors, and I always want to hear from Toronto Raptors fans about the Toronto Raptors. Always happy to answer questions, always looking for feedback on videos, anything you want to talk about, I am there. So follow me at Raptors Report on Twitter, and maybe we can do a little tweet along when we watch the Toronto Raptors play in the summer. So that's the video. I hope you enjoyed, and make sure to tune in next time for our next episode, and make sure to subscribe and like the video if you haven't already. Anyway, cheers.